Hi, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Bishakha, that as our third speaker for the podcast. Bishakha has been the founder member of Point of View in Mumbai. Apart from this, she has been a noted journalist and a filmmaker. In all her work, Bishakha explores marginal, invisible, and silenced point of views or those considered illegitimate. She is currently writing Selling Sex, a book on the lives of sex workers in India. Bishakha was a trustee of the Wikimedia Foundation and is currently on the board of the Global Non-Profit Association for Progressive Communications. It's my pleasure today to explore with Bishakha the reasons why she started work on media, reproductive health, and women. Let's listen to Bishakha and how she got around to looking at this very interesting work. Over to you, Bishakha.
Yeah. Okay. So I think over the years, there's been a lot of growth in the concept of gender equality. One of the things is we've really moved from talking just about women to talking about women and other marginalized genders, right? So we are now equally concerned about people who are trans, who are intersex, who are non-binary, etc., but who often have been invisible. So that has expanded. And all these communities actually face discrimination or inequality because of sort of their identities, right? So this is very important to think about. I think the other big change that I've seen over the years in gender equality is really that now we really think of it as an intersectional sort of issue, right? Like, where suppose I'm a woman, I'm not just a woman, I have many other identities, right? So I can be, suppose I'm a Dalit woman and I live in a rural area and I earn, a very small income, etc. All of these identities intersect with my identity as a woman, and that's what creates issues for me, right? So we know, for example, that Dalit women face a lot of violence because because they're both Dalit and women, not just because they're women, and they also find it much harder to get justice as a result. So I think the two big changes is actually really bringing in marginalized genders and expanding the umbrella of gender, and the other is really talking about the multiple identities that women have and how that contributes to inequality. These are two big things that I've seen. Um, in terms of, what do I see as the future of women, sexuality, and media in India? I think one of the biggest changes actually is that women are much more outspoken now when it comes to sexuality, especially on the internet, in digital spaces, right? So whether it's looking for information, whether it's sexual expression, whether it's fighting against sexual harassment, sexual violence, sexual abuse, there's a way in which the internet has created some sort of space, and we see that particularly also with queer groups, right? Like LGBTQI groups in India, where particularly if there are communities in smaller towns, etc., they first form online because they feel it's safer to form online than in physical spaces. I think in order to make this form of media, what we call new media, but which we know as the internet or online spaces, safer for all women, I think we have to do a number of things, but one of them is really deal with the, like, first of all, make women understand digital safety, digital security, digital literacy. I think we have to ensure that women understand what are our digital rights and how that those connect with us as women. I think we really have to work on online gender based harassment, abuse, and violence, which is what restricts many women from speaking out. And, basically create a sense of belonging so that women don't feel like we are interlopers in online spaces, but that these spaces are really meant for us and that they belong to us and we can freely and fearlessly navigate them. I think these are the really important things. And I think as part of that, for us, what's important is that we want to make digital technologies safer, not just for women with some forms of privilege, but literally for all women, right? So for us, it's important that women with disabilities be able to access these spaces, rural women, teenage girls should all be able to feel safe in these spaces, because at this moment, our lives are no longer physical only, no, neither are they digital fully. As far as I'm concerned, the future is phygital, with all of us having one foot on the ground and one hand on our cell phones.
I'm really loving this word. I don't know whether it exists or is it your, but I think we need to use more of it. But tell me, Bishakha, I was just wondering. So you're writing this book, Selling Sex, right? I hope I got the name right. What about this? So are we also looking at the digital world and selling sex, or is this about non-digital media?
So it's about both, and actually, it's just a working title, so the title may change.
Okay.
But basically, if we think about the pandemic, and the lockdown and the work from home, one of the communities that really got very strongly affected actually was women in sex work, right? Or people in sex work. And these were communities that earlier had worked in purely physical spaces, but suddenly, when it became that touch itself became dangerous, then it was very hard to continue working in physical spaces. So many people in sex work have now gone into digital spaces to continue earning some form of livelihood, right? So I think I would be interested in exploring both digital and physical spaces in the book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the book. I have to say. I mean, I saw the title and I was like, this is something I would be very keen on. Also, when considering I know your works, I was just wanting you to just expand on. I remember a chat with you where you had spoken about the teenagers in the communities, bastis, using internet to their advantage and how it has changed lives for them. I thought on this Women's Day we should maybe touch on that a bit. It would be really interesting for people out there to actually hear about that work of yours.
Sure. So what we do is, we work with teenagers who are from low income communities, right? Whether in the cities or whether they're in rural areas. And what we find, we actually work with teenage girls. And what happens is, because teenage girls actually have very little access to mobile phones, right? Or to the internet, when they come into these digital spaces, they uh, sort of feel like they need a lot of help to be able to get through in these digital spaces. At the same time, they're facing a lot of discrimination in their families because their brothers are being given phones much earlier, better phones. Their brothers are being allowed to use their phones how they want for as long as they want, talk to who they want, etc. But when they are trying to use these phones, their usage is being curtailed or monitored or controlled very heavily by their families. So girls end up sort of with a disadvantage in digital societies, which is what many of our countries are turning into digital societies, right? And they find that they just don't have like enough of the means to get the information, get employment, handle like digital payments, all that kind of thing safely. So what we do is we work with communities across India. Say, for instance, currently we are working with domestic workers in Kolkata, we are working with health workers in rural West Bengal, we are working with teenage girls in Jharkhand and in Uttar Pradesh, etc. And all of it currently is online. And we are just training them to use these digital technologies far more securely, right? So that they also feel confident, they also feel comfortable, and so that their own sense of belonging, autonomy, and agency also grows in these spaces. So, this is really with an eye on the future.
It's amazing, Vishaka, how the physical control on women from actual physicality has also moved to digital. I mean, I was just thinking as you were speaking that how earlier we would say, औरत को बाहर नहीं जाने देते, you know, how far long she can go and how late she can come back. And now you're saying, I mean, I honestly, I did not even think this through that even, I mean, gadget, yes, model of gadget, but monitoring how much they can use and what they're using it for. I think, yeah, I'm just wondering where we stop, where the world is going to stop controlling women and their bodies and their space. I'm going to leave our this conversation with this thought of how even today in 2021 we are still talking of control, be it in any manner, be it in physical or in digital space. Thank you so much, Bishaka. Thank you for coming and joining us and giving us this enlightening point of view.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.